Demographic change is the key to the Democratic Party's political ambitions. Let's say that again for emphasis because it is the secret to the entire immigration debate. Demographic change is the key to the Democratic Party's political ambitions. In order to win and maintain power, Democrats plan to change the population of the country. They're no longer trying to win you over with their program. They're obviously not trying to improve your life. They don't even really care about your vote anymore. Their goal is to make you irrelevant. That is provably true. And because it's true, it drives them absolutely crazy when you say it out loud. A hurt dog barks. They scream about how noting the obvious is immoral. You're a racist if you dare to repeat things that they themselves proudly say.
Tucker Carlson's response or answer to all of those societal ills is, let's purge this country as much as we possibly can of immigrants, people of color, people who don't identify with us. Okay, so anyone who thinks like, no, it's totally fine. I'm gonna go on Tucker Carlson's show and we're gonna have a friendly conversation because we agree, we can work together. We can work together and actually do something about income and wealth inequality in this country. You're stupid. People who think that are stupid. Okay, because you have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and look at what Tucker Carlson is offering as solutions. And this is the garbage he offers.
Your producers had been reaching out trying to get me to talk to you for at least a year and a half. And my feelings toward coming on your show went from I would never in a million years to kind of giving myself the opportunity to listen to your podcast, to figure out who you really are, because of course I had very strong thoughts about who you are.
Really?
Yeah, but I realized that it was based on clips that I would watch of you that had gone viral. And they had gone viral because they were offensive or you had said something that was
viral, like syphilis is viral.
I mean, pretty much. Okay. I mean, you should think of it that way because it was mostly painting you in a very negative light.
Well, look, I don't think we need to adjudicate his white supremacist status. I think it's abundantly clear in the way that he talks about immigrants, the way he talks about black people, the way he even talks about just poor people. I mean, he calls immigrants dirty. Like yeah, he's a white supremacist. Like we don't even need to debate that.
So it's safe to say that most people on the left really don't have any time for Cenk Uygur, Ana Kasparian, and the Young Turks anymore. I mean, yes, maybe there are a few leftist channels who seem to want to react to every little thing they say, but I'd say for the most part, people don't really give a shit about them because they've made such a hard pivot to the right wing. But one thing you couldn't say about TYT is that they don't care about Palestine and they aren't anti-Israel. So if you have maybe some normie watching their coverage on Israel, then it's not the worst thing ever. But I also wanted to make this video, not because I particularly care about TYT, although, you know, I've talked about them in the past, I've talked about their influence on me in the past. I want to today use this case study to illustrate how increasingly basing your politics only on one issue, and that is Israel and Palestine, can lead you into a bit of a weird place politically. And I know it can be really hard for people because we've seen all this terrible shit for the last 2 years, and for a lot of people, they never cared about this issue before, and they've finally been exposed to the horrors of it. So now they are really, really invested. And that's, of course, you know, the silver lining to this terrible tragedy that Israel has done to Gaza and has been doing to Palestine for decades and decades is so many people now are anti-Israel. And that includes conservatives. But that also doesn't mean conservatives are good. And if you increasingly base your politics just on this one issue, and then you start saying like, well, Tucker Carlson, he's all right. He's not actually anti-Semitic. Candace Owens, not an anti-Semite either. All these fascists you're rehabilitating and whitewashing just because they're anti-Israel. And I actually made a video about this. I'm pretty sure it was either October or November 2023 saying there are so many fascist accounts on Twitter using what Israel are doing to basically make themselves more popular.
This guy clearly doesn't care about Palestine, but if you go on his account right now when he has 2.4 million followers, everything he tweets right now is about Palestine, is about Israel, and a lot of it is stuff you would agree with if you are pro-Palestinian, because what he's probably doing is looking at various pro-Palestinian accounts, stealing their content, posting it on his own Twitter feed, and just hyper-focusing on what Israel are doing right now, which of course is absolutely fine. But when you actually dive into his politics, you know he is not sincere. Like, he doesn't support Palestinians. He doesn't like Muslims. He just generally hates Jewish people and he hates the West. And he's massively grifting off this to make himself even more popular. Again, you can say, well, it's a big account tweeting pro-Palestinian stuff. But at the end of the day, this stuff isn't going to last forever. He's going to start talking about other stuff again. And then do you like this guy then for standing up for Palestine? And then do you believe everything he says about everything? You know, if you're naive, do you start supporting Russia because you like this guy? That's the danger of these things. But now I want to get into people you might not have heard of until October last year. And now you might follow, because I've seen a lot of people, even left-wing people, retweeting these accounts. Because unlike myself, who's been constantly on Twitter and online for ages, I remember all these accounts were being anti-vax, pro-Andrew Tate, and anti-trans. Like, this is what I associate all these people with, but now they're trying to grift on the pro-Palestinian movement and basically act like they care about Palestinian lives. They don't. These people are all fascist, and they're capitalizing off this because they're anti-Semites, and that's the only thing that's motivating them.
And that's what people like Tucker Carlson are doing, and a lot of conservatives are cynically doing. Tucker Carlson is just smart, and he's planted his flag in the ground of, I am this big anti-Israeli government voice. He's not even anti-Israel, he's anti-Israeli government. So although there might be a variety of reasons why TYT have seemingly cozied up to fascist so much, I have seen a trend on social media, just like average people you know on social media, they're retweeting, they're reposting stuff from actual conservatives just because they're anti-Israel. And despite like this issue being like representative of so many issues we face in the world right now, I think it's really important for people to remember, even when it comes to Israel and Palestine, the issue fundamentally, at the end of the day, is capitalism and class interest. And that includes what's happening in Palestine. I've made videos that have said that what is happening in Gaza is a sacrifice for capitalism. The reason so many countries that are actually supportive of Palestine, the reason they don't do anything in response to what Israel has done and what the United States have done and what the West has done, is because they don't want to lose out on money. They have private interest that is deeply in bed with Israel. So that's why there hasn't been this massive response from other countries in a way that you would get back in the Cold War, because there was a socialist united bloc who could rely on each other and who could oppose what the West were doing and unite around an issue. That simply doesn't exist anymore. So the world just let this happen to Palestine because it would cause too much trouble to actually stand up for them. And what happened in Gaza can happen in other places, does happen in other places, and as I made a video about 3 weeks ago, will actually be used as a blueprint for what European countries will do to refugees when climate change gets even worse. And you have to remember all of that, despite how hard it is, because at the end of the day, if you just base your politics on this one issue, then this is going to lead you into a weird place. And that's how you get these crazy fucking people who have politics all over the spectrum, because they're listening to TYT, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Jimmy Dore, Candace Owens. But I think this steers you in a fascist direction, because none of these channels and none of these people are actually pushing a coherent ideology of like anti-capitalism, socialism. It's all about opposition to Israel. And a lot of their rhetoric is very pro-American. And also what I see from a lot of these channels, they act like Israel controls America, not the other way around. They don't act like America controls Israel and Israel does what America wants. And Israel is the proxy in the Middle East, the attack dog in the Middle East, and everything they do, they absolutely fucking love for the most part. They act like Israel controls the US government and that's how they can get away with everything. So again, if you follow these people and you listen to their arguments, even if you agree with that anti-Israel stuff, your political ideology is not going to be anything constructive. And that's what I've always argued for. You have to make it into something constructive. So I've probably played you some clips already, but let's get more into TYT's pivot to whitewashing Tucker Carlson, even though they know he's a white supremacist. So before we go any further, if you like the video after you've watched it and you like my channel, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If you want to follow me on social media, at the Kavernacle on Blue Sky and on Instagram. And if you want to support my work, please support me on Patreon and my YouTube memberships. So the reason I know so much about Tucker Carlson, despite being a British person who obviously doesn't watch Fox News, is because TYT would inform me what a white supremacist this guy was. And even in terms of like, let's say 5 or 6 years ago, some of the stuff he would say on mainstream TV was shocking that it was allowed. It was just so insanely racist. And yes, TYT know he was really racist. They have made videos like this. Tucker Carlson goes all in on white nationalism, and Tucker Carlson cackles at his white supremacist reputation. And I'll play you some clips of his video, and I'll play you some clips of the hosts talking about it and watching it, that yes, Tucker Carlson is a white supremacist and Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite. That really wasn't a controversial thing to say for like ever, but now TYT have decided, nah, he's actually someone we should promote 24/7.
You've obviously interviewed a ton of fascinating people, both sides of the aisle. Who would you most like to interview again if they would take your call?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. There's so many people. I mean, honestly, I'd like to interview anybody in Democratic leadership. I'd like to interview a Democratic congressman. No one will talk to me. No one will come on the show. You're a white supremacist. We're not talking to you. Really? No, I'm not. I just have different ideas from you. Why are you calling me names? It's not even real.
Well, look, I don't think we need to adjudicate his white supremacist status. I think it's abundantly clear in the way that he talks about immigrants, the way he talks about black people, the way he even talks about just poor people. I mean, he calls immigrants dirty. Like yeah, he's a white supremacist. Like we don't even need to debate that.
Well, I mean, today I don't think we're doing this video. He's in the news for going on some other Fox show and talking about how Democrats are importing violent criminals to change the demographics of America. That's just the great replacement thing. So we don't need to make the case he's a white supremacist. He eagerly does it every single day.
Maybe that's our fault for asking too little of our immigrants. We aren't self-confident enough to make them assimilate so they never feel fully American. Or maybe the problem is deeper than that. Maybe we're importing people from places whose values are simply antithetical to ours. Who knows what the problem is? But there is a problem. And whatever the cause, this cannot continue. It's not sustainable. No country can import large numbers of people who hate it and expect to survive.
This talk is super dangerous, man. So we're talking about how someone is a danger to the country, a living fire alarm. He's not finishing the sentence, but the sentence is, the last part is super clear. Isn't anybody gonna do anything about it?
He said, or else.
Okay.
Or else doesn't often mean, or else good things will happen. Or else is a threat to you, a threat to your life and to your family.
And when he said she comes from places that maybe have antithetical values to us. Nah, well, you lost all subtlety, Tucker. If you think that's subtle, it is not. She's Muslim. And Muslims cannot be good Americans. Their values are antithetical to American values. Well, you know what we call that? And you can cry all day about it, but we call that racism and bigotry. And now when you say, oh, I can't believe they called me racist when I just said that Muslims are antithetical to America. What, I just hate all Muslims. Is that bigoted now? Yes, it is bigoted. And if you don't like that, go ahead and cry it on Fox News. I don't give a damn.
So Tucker Carlson was obviously fired by Fox News in 2023. And yes, people at TYT were still saying he was a racist, right? So these people, Cenk and Ana, pretending that they don't know or they don't think he's a racist or he's really changed. He hasn't changed. The only thing he's changed on is he is anti-Israel now. But that is a calculation. He's been pro-Israel his entire life. What? And suddenly he's had a change of heart. This is a guy who in leaked audio was talking about how Arabs are absolutely backward barbarians. He is deeply fucking racist, and it shows through all of his rhetoric throughout his entire career. He didn't suddenly change in the last year. But even recently, you have videos like this. Are we headed to World War III? I've made videos about World War III fear-mongering just being bullshit. And TYT decided to talk about this issue. They have to show Tucker Carlson's show where he's interviewing Alex Jones. Is that where we're at? You're exposing your audience to these two idiots, and it's very, very uncritical.
Now, Tucker Carlson agreed with Alex Jones's take on the Tomahawk missiles. These are long-range missiles, while making it very clear that he does not like Volodymyr Zelensky at all. I think that's been clear since the almost beginning of this Russian invasion into Ukraine. Trump, on the other hand, has pulled.
Why would the US government continue to recognize Zelensky, who's an unelected dictator who's worked for years to destroy Christianity in Ukraine, which is a Christian country and has always been? Why would he be invited to the White House this week? I don't understand. He does not have a Democratic mandate. He's not an elected leader. He's a murderer. They've sold our weapons to some of the worst terror groups in the world. And we're treating him like he's a head of state. Like, why are we doing that?
And just a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he was back at the White House, and Trump then posted Truth Social. And I love Trump overall, but Trump started doing a 180 from saying we need to get out of this and saying, well, we're out of it, but we'll sell whatever weapons to Europe you want. And I feel like Ukraine's going to win and maybe not just get back its territory, but get more territory, meaning Russia, which is an extremely provocative and escalatory statement to Russia.
So I wanted to fact check one thing that Tucker Carlson said, because I didn't know if Ukraine is a Christian nation, but it turns out, yes, 72% of the population identified as Orthodox, identified with the Orthodox Church. But whatever, that's an irrelevant point to this conversation. Everything else they said, I think, is interesting and worthy of a discussion. What do you make of it, Cenk? Because I honestly largely agree.
And then basically, something they've been promoting recently is Tucker Carlson talking about Netanyahu and Charlie Kirk turning to be like more anti-Israel. And they post these videos, look at the views as well. And TYT's been leaking views for years now, but these all do really well from them. 318K views for this one, 686K views for Tucker Carlson reveals IDF soldiers running the Pentagon. And also, Tucker Carlson made some sort of like 9/11 documentary, which Cenk and Ana have been praising and promoting a lot on TYT.
Anyone who doubts the official narrative is cast as a kook, a criminal, a fringe conspiracy theorist, and punished. They've been blacklisted and censored and banned. Even as the leaders who failed to protect our country on 9/11 use these attacks as a pretense to expand their own powers and permanently transform the United States.
Tucker Carlson has published the first episode of his 9/11 docuseries, and it is definitely worth watching.
Now, I haven't watched this 9/11 documentary, but let's just say I'm super skeptical that it is like factual. I'm super skeptical it even has any new information in it. And I am pretty certain, without even watching it, that it probably just delves into a lot of insane and debunked conspiracy theories. Now, of course, I don't think things like September 11th or the JFK assassination have been truthfully told to the public. Of course, you know, most people would say they've been lied to. But I would also say a lot of the conspiracy theories around 9/11, the most recent one is that Israel did it. I just don't really buy it, to be honest. But also, Cenk and Ana aren't like experts on like 9/11 anyway, so I wouldn't even expect them to know what is wrong with this documentary. But that is just like besides the point. So Cenk and Ana now love Tucker Carlson because he's anti-Israel. Not that he's some sort of anti-Zionist who wants a one-state Palestinian solution. He pretty much just hates Netanyahu and the Israeli government, and he hates the influence Israel has on the US government, and he believes, like many of these people, that Israel actually basically controls the US government, which again, I don't think is true. And these people who believe this usually are pretty patriotic, and a lot of them support Donald Trump and support various politicians. They just think the problem is they give in too much to Israel. So, you know, you've heard Cenk and Ana talk shit about Tucker Carlson, how he's a racist. So here is Cenk going on Tucker Carlson's show after Charlie Kirk died to talk about like basically both of them in a very positive light. Like, I don't know why the fuck he's on this, but he is.
You had this kind of famous exchange with him. I think it was 2018 at Politicon, and it got super heated and bitter. And it was like, I don't know, things were viral in 2018, but it was viral. And then you came back to a TPUSA event, and I was amazed and impressed, both that he invited you and that you came. And you still disagreed on some things, but it was, I mean, the tone was completely different. Can you explain that? And better and great, I thought.
Yeah. So first of all, in 2018, that was the Politicon that I debated you.
Okay.
And
Sorry. We got along pretty well, as I remember.
We did. You were at the RNC in 2024, and Charlie came by at our booth and said, "Hey, do you guys want to talk?" And we were a little bit taken aback by that. We were really surprised by it. And Ana and I, Ana Kasparian is my co-host on the Young Turks,
Yes.
talked it over and said, yeah, we would like to talk. And so he came on the show, and so we had our disagreements. So it's interesting that you have me on here, partly for the reasons that your friend texted you about. Oh, well, that's strange, right? Left and right. And so I don't agree with everything that you, Megan, and Scott said about Charlie.
I'm sure.
Right. But I think that's what makes it more interesting. So the willingness to talk to us, even though we were so entrenched on different sides, right? And so then when we started the conversation, what wound up happening surprised us. So did we still have our disagreements about the black pilot line, this, that, and other thing? Of course we did, right? But when we started talking about corporate rule, he agreed.
Here's another clip of Ana Kasparian going on Tucker Carlson's show and saying that her views of him were kind of like through out of context clips.
Of course, I had very strong thoughts about who you are.
Really?
Yeah, but I realized that it was based on clips that I would watch of you that had gone viral. And they had gone viral because they were offensive, or you had said something that was
viral, like syphilis is viral.
I mean, pretty much. Okay. I mean, you should think of it that way, because it was mostly painting you in a very negative light.
That is just absolutely cowardly and shows you what these people are doing right now. Like, it is a grift. I do believe they've changed their politics and evolved into this weird, like, we have to side with every fascist influencer and millionaire to, I don't know, oppose Trump. But yeah, she knows he's a white supremacist. She's covered him in detail. TYT made so many videos, and what context could you add to some of the clips I've shown you that makes it not racist? It is absolutely 100% racist. And then you have absolutely insane shit like this. Mainstream media is now asking everyone to denounce Tucker Carlson and real Candace Owens, but those two have been more understanding and sympathetic to Muslim Americans than all of mainstream media combined for my whole life. So why don't we start by denouncing national media first? I mean, yeah, of course, American media is insanely Islamophobic. If I was going to say two people who have been sympathetic to Muslim Americans and defended them, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson would not come to mind. I bet I can, like, in 2 seconds, I haven't even looked this up, I bet I can find stuff of them saying loads of Islamophobic crap about American Muslims. Actually, I think I have a clip somewhere today of him saying shit about Ilhan Omar.
Omar isn't disappointed in America. She's enraged by it. Virtually every public statement she makes accuses Americans of bigotry and racism. This is an immoral country, she says. She has undisguised contempt for the United States and for its people. That should worry you, and not just because Omar is now a sitting member of Congress. Ilhan Omar is living proof that the way we practice immigration has become dangerous to this country. A system designed to strengthen America is instead undermining it. Some of the very people we try hardest to help have come to hate us passionately. Maybe that's our fault for asking too little of our immigrants. We aren't self-confident enough to make them assimilate so they never feel fully American. Or maybe the problem is deeper than that. Maybe we're importing people from places whose values are simply antithetical to ours.
So yeah, Cenk, I don't think Tucker Carlson is actually the defender of American Muslims. But again, we can talk about the more cynical side. So the cynical side is TYT has been leaking subscribers' views for a long, long time. So they've been saying this shit for like the last year. They're going for a populist message now. They don't care what your politics are. If you support certain economic things or you support, anti-Israel policies, then you can be on their side. And we don't care who we side with. We'll platform Marjorie Taylor Greene and talk about how great she is, Tucker Carlson, all these people. It doesn't matter. As long as they are anti-Israel, we're going to work with them. And a lot of socialists would say, yeah, like doing stuff like that is what like socialists kind of do in electoral politics, because most people are not going to agree on everything, cultural issues, social issues, whatever. So you focus on the class issues to get people on side. And that is something I don't always agree with, because I'm going to make a video about Gary's economics and the limits of his message and stuff. At the same time, that's not really what they're doing, because if you're talking about just class interests, why are you going on Tucker Carlson's show, this millionaire who's very powerful, and then saying he actually cares about like economic populism because his kids can't afford homes and shit like that?
Honestly, this made me think about Tucker Carlson as well, because while some might argue, oh, his economic populism is all fake, I actually don't think that's the case. He's got a ton of kids, and his kids can't afford to buy a home, even though he himself grew up, very affluent and all of that. The fact that his own children are having difficulty, hitting the milestones that his generation easily hit is part of the reason why he feels motivated to talk about our broken, economy and how we need to do something about it.
You're obviously just either absolutely delusional or just fucking lying, because getting in bed with these conservatives is good for your media career. Ana Kasparian now works for Valuetainment, which is what Patrick Bet-David owns, right? So she literally works for a very conservative Trump supporter now. So that is why you can't trust these people in terms of class. But if we're gonna talk about the uncynical side, let's say for sure Ana Kasparian and Cenk actually think like these people are honest actors and they are allies when it comes to anti-Israel. That just shows you how this terrible thing that's happened has just broken people's brains. And I know a lot of people would feel like this, and I've seen people do this. I've seen loads of anti-Israel pages repost people who are just anti-Israel, even if they're fascists. And yet, if we're going to talk about a united front against Israel, that can be relevant of like, I obviously don't agree with these people, but if they're pushing an anti-Israel message to conservatives, that's obviously a good thing. If we can get more people in the anti-Israel position, that is a good thing. But when you start whitewashing Tucker Carlson, saying he's not actually a racist, saying he's not actually an anti-Semite, then playing clips of him interviewing Alex Jones, like what the fuck are you doing to people's brains? Like people trust you and people respect you and people like take what you say seriously. So if you start saying Tucker Carlson is actually all right, they're going to start thinking that as well. And Tucker Carlson might say some stuff you agree with on like his Israel position. But again, he is a deeply racist conservative. And if Tucker Carlson became some sort of politician, do you think he would be, friendly to class interests of lower classes? No. Do you think he would just be a pretty standard Republican? Yeah, he would. So whitewashing this guy does absolutely nothing. If you're talking about his own influence, then he's influencing his own fans to become anti-Israel. That's a good thing. I'm glad that's happening. Doesn't mean we then have to then start promoting him to everyone else who isn't conservative and saying, yeah, actually support this guy. He's independent, even though he's insanely fucking wealthy and really well connected. And that's why you have to always remember class politics and anti-capitalism at the end of the day. You have to think about what Israel has done to Gaza and what Israel is probably going to continue to do, or what the Western vultures want to do to Gaza, like turn it into some sort of like colonial outpost run by Tony Blair. What does that all mean? And what does that represent? And how is that going to impact us beyond just like seeing this terrible shit that our governments are doing? That's what you have to remember, because you are far closer to being a Palestinian than you are to being Tucker Carlson. So you have to remember that before you start promoting someone just for being anti-Israel. And he isn't even that good on Israel anyway. He's just okay for someone who's a fascist conservative in America. And always have to keep it in mind, no matter what terrible shit you see, you have to analyze it based on economics, systems, foreign policies of these countries and why they do it. Most of the reasons these countries do it is purely for capital interests. And while you might have people in Israel who are doing it for religious reasons and Zionist reasons, and you have plenty of that in the governments that support them, why does the UK support Israel? Why does America support Israel? Why did they not stop this? Why don't they care? Why do they let Israel do this? All of those questions you have to ask yourself and then apply it to the rest of the world and think about other places and think about your own life and think about what could happen to your own country and think about the billionaires and the elite who are running the show across the world. Don't base your whole politics on one issue. And if the Israel stuff is your entry point to leftist politics, that's a good thing. But I feel like if you just over focus on this one issue, I know it's very hard not to, you can go down a road influenced by people like TYT platforming Tucker Carlson and promoting people like Candace Owens, like Cenk did there and stuff. Then you go down a place of like, what do you actually support? Do you support anti-capitalism? Do you support class interests? Or are you allowing yourselves through your more progressive leanings to actually start watching fascist content on the side? Then I'm even thinking about like how that leads people to being like anti-vax and anti-science, support people like RFK Jr., who Cenk was also promoting as well. So yeah, I just wanted to use this case study to remind people that being anti-Israel is not the sign of someone being a good person. And I've been speaking about this for a long, long time. Of course, I welcome any bad person who has influence, like Tucker Carlson, being anti-Israel. I'd prefer that to them being pro-Israel. Doesn't mean I'm going to give him a pass for 30 years of just being an open fascist and turning people's brains to mush on Fox News and actually creating more fascists. You don't get a pass for that because you decided as part of your political calculations, you're going to be one of the prominent anti-Israel conservatives for the moment. So that's it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.